Brexit has given the government an opportunity to unlock the potential of gene-edited animals. European Union regulations currently ban the commercial development of the technology which sees scientists alter DNA to introduce specific traits into a living cell, including resistance to disease. However, leaving the EU has given the UK an opportunity to change the rules. A report into the social and ethical issues raised by the use of gene editing in farm animals was published today. The Nuffield Council on Bioethics study makes 10 recommendations to the government, animal breeders and major food retailers. These include a full policy review and public consultation ahead of developing a plan on how to use the technology, as well as devising more detailed breeding standards enforced by a national authority. Other recommendations include labeling food to include scientific advice on safety, nutrition and health, as well as the government getting food retailers together to agree only responsibly bred animals are sold. Professor Bruce Whitelaw, Interim Director of the Animal Sciences Research Establishment, the Roslin Institute, supports the safe and responsible development of gene-edited animals. He was a member of the report working group and told BBC News, "Genome editing is a genetic technology that has much to offer agriculture." At Roslin, we have already shown this technology can reduce the burden of disease in livestock by producing pigs resistant to the PRRS virus. If this application progresses to the farm, this will have welfare benefits for the animals on that farm. Porcine reproductive and respiratory syndrome, PRRS, can lead to breathing problems and complications over reproduction in pigs. Professor Whitelaw added that the report identifies how the technology can be used to benefit agriculture. He said, "There is momentum and now is the time to identify how to use genetic technologies to produce a fair and responsible livestock food system." The report warns that reducing the risk of disease should not be used as an excuse to pay less attention to animal welfare. It notes checks and controls should guide the use of gene editing, as its introduction risks being used to accelerate existing, unethical breeding practices. One key conclusion of the report is that the interests of the public and animals must be aligned with the introduction of the technique in food and farming. Professor John Dupre, Chair of the Nuffield Council on Bioethics Working Group and Professor of Philosophy at the University of Exeter, said, "The potential of genome editing offers a new approach to bring about genetic changes in farmed animals much more quickly than is currently possible through selective breeding." Whilst some applications of genome editing, such as disease resistance, sound great for animals in theory, if they were to lead to further intensification of farming, then that may well be harmful to the quality of animals' lives in other ways. Under no circumstances should new breeding technologies be brought in to perpetuate unsustainable food and farming systems. Now is the moment to act to prevent this. The government announced plans to harness the technology in September. It sees gene editing as a way of helping farmers grow crops which are more resistant to pests on top of boosting productivity and nutrition. Environment Secretary George Eustice has described gene editing as a tool which could help tackle some of the biggest challenges humankind faces around food security, climate change and biodiversity loss. He said, outside the EU, we are able to foster innovation to help grow plants that are stronger and more resilient to climate change. We will be working closely with farming and environmental groups to ensure that the right rules are in place. Gene editing is not the same as genetic modification, as it does not result in DNA from other species being introduced. It aims to create new varieties which mimic those that could be produced by natural breeding processes. Supporters say gene editing could be used to produce animals with characteristics which are harder to achieve using conventional methods. The use of such a technique could give farmers and breeders more control over the genetic traits of animals such as pigs, chickens and cows. It is not currently used in the breeding of animals sold for food, but the government has announced its intention to relax regulations in England for animals bred using the technique. After leaving the EU, the UK announced it would change gene editing rules to slash red tape and make research and development easier. Our report shows that the public generally seems more concerned about how and why new breeding technologies will be used than the nature and safety of the techniques. It is not what is done, but why it is done, that matters most to them. The public recognize our food and farming systems need to change, and it is clear they will not tolerate the introduction of any new technology that takes us further away from high welfare, sustainable farming. A spokesman at the Department for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs said, "We are starting with plants only and then reviewing the application to animals and microorganisms later." We are committed to proportionate, science-based regulation, and we will not reduce safety or animal welfare standards.